Hey guys, it is April, sorry. It is April 15th, tax day. It's also Wednesday, so time to review some comics. Just a warning about the quality of today's video. I am sick, I have allergies, probably will until next week, so next video, probably the same dealio. So if I'm sneezing, if I'm coughing a lot, that is why, but I will try to keep it down. Also, thankfully, only 5 books to review, so this should be quick, starting off with Miss Marvel, issue 14. Really like the cover to this one. So, plot-wise, continuing from the arc started in last issue, we find Camilla having a bit of a crush on this new character introduced, a friend of her family's, the son of her her parents' friends who live in the neighborhood. This super handsome, genius, perfect kind of whiz kid who also happens to have superpowers. And we discover later that his superpowers are very Gambit-like. He can make things explode. So the two, I guess, lovebirds, we'll call them, flirt a lot. They escape in the middle of the night. He takes her up to on top of a water tower where they almost kiss. It's very romantic. Before they get interrupted by the police, and next day, Camilla on the way to school gets picked up by this new guy. I forget his name. To be completely honest, what was his name? I forget. Kamran, Kamran. Cameron. I don't know. Anywho, I'll just call him Cameron, I guess. Takes her off and turns out to be a bit more of a bad boy than Camilla first expected. Camilla, of course, being not Little Miss Perfect, but striving to be very kind of a straight edge kind of girl. She initially thinks so is he. He turns out to be more of a bad influence than she expected. And I really like this issue. I really like Camilla's inner monologue. It feels very naturally written. It feels like someone like her character would actually think and say. And aside from just the very well written dialogue, I really love the facial expressions in this issue. They're all really great. From Camilla kind of still acting surprised, or not acting, but still surprised that he has powers, to her jumping down. I like this whole panel, her just jumping down with the huge feet. What are some other good expressions? I mean, it's very, I feel, kind of anime facial expressions too. It reminds me a lot of some anime, like really embarrassed faces and stuff. Her groggy in the morning. And I like the brothers' kind of expression in this panel over here. Again, very, very kind of an anime sort of expression. But yeah, I really like this book. It's really sweet. And yeah, I just like the way it's written. So like the way it's written, yeah, written really naturalistically. Yeah, allergies have probably made my head a bit fuzzy, which is why I've noticed I'm repeating myself. One thing I don't like about this book at this point is that it seems to like the word embiggen a lot more than everybody else. The word embiggen, of course, from The Simpsons, part of the town motto. I forget the exact town motto of Springfield, but something embiggens the heart or embiggens the soul. And it's really funny because it's this fake word that's entered the real world. But Camilla used it, like, since issue 1. It appears probably once an issue, and you get it. It's a funny word, but it's becoming like a catchphrase almost at this point, but it's not like an exceptionally funny thing. I don't know why it keeps on popping up. At this point, just very, very nitpicky, I admit, but just something that has finally gotten to me after 14 issues. of this. Um, but yeah, this book actually, it has a lot going on. There's a lot of scenes in this book. It's not just kind of your traditional 1, 2, 3, 4 scene sort of comic. There's a lot happening. I thought this book would end at least 2 times before it did, just because of how I'm used to, you know, used to reading normal comic books where they have this sort of set scene structure, and this one just keeps them going. And I don't mean that in a bad thing. I mean, it's just the scenes are very quick, but they never feel rushed. It is very, very good pacing. And with the great written dialogue from every character, not just Camilla, but Camilla, Cameron, Bruno gets some good lines. Camilla's brother gets some good lines. Everybody just is really fun to read. Again, facial expressions on point, and really good book overall. So yeah, really enjoying Miss Marvel. Moving on to American Vampire Second Cycle. What issue is this? It doesn't actually say the issue on the cover. I don't think. I have no idea what issue this is. That's not that good. I'll have to check online, or maybe it says on the inside. Nope, it just says part 2 of this arc. But yeah, I love the opening. I love the first 2 pages of this book. We have a little tiki party in Malibu or Miami, West Florida. We don't know where, just West Florida. This little tiki party that gets interrupted by these monster vampire things. But what I like about these guys is that, as horrific and monstrous as they are, they're still obviously smart. I love this panel. I posted a picture of this panel on my Instagram earlier when I was reading the book, and lighting is not helping me with this camera at all. But the guy says, "Please, I have children. Please, I have kids." And the monster says, "Aw, point them out." And I just thought, what a great panel. What a great little exchange between predator and prey right there. I really liked it. And this book has... as dark as this book has been, this issue has some really on-point jokes, just good jokes that I like. From here on in, we follow the main characters, Pearl, Skinner, their new friends at the VMS, which is the vampire group, society thing, group of vampires that help people. I don't know. I forgot what it stands for exactly. But we follow the A-Team, which is Pearl and... Felicia, as they're on their way to, we find out they're on their way to Area 51, which is where they believe that the Grey Trader's superweapon is, or so they're trying to intercept the Grey Trader, get the weapon before he can, and they find out the area, it's in Area 51, which is really, because of course it's in Area 51, because at this point this issue is kind of like a turning point where it goes kind of full sci-fi story instead of horror. Along with them, they're bringing this vampire who's some sort of a digging vampire, I guess. This guy, this gargoyle-looking guy in the trunk there, or not the trunk, the back of the truck. Yeah, the gas station attendant insults him, and then as they drive away, he notices that the vampire is not a statue; it's flipping the bird at him. Just yeah, another good little humorous scene over there. Meanwhile, in Detroit, an astronaut crashes in the middle of Detroit, and of course it is a vampire astronaut. So just a little quick flash of that before going to the B-Team, who is also in Florida. And their mission is to ride the rocket into space so they can intercept a falling VHS, I think it's a VHS, film canister, so it's film, a falling film canister from a Russian satellite to gather data on where the Grey Trader is. And of course, should they be discovered doing this, it would cause a nuclear war because it's an American intercepting a Russian thing in the 60s. So very, very careful mission that they're planning here. And while 2 of the VMS people are going up, Skinner is staying on the ground in order to, I guess, monitor the mission, make sure everything is safe and that they aren't found out. We then cut back to Pearl, who's been having nightmares about the Grey Trader. She calls up Skinner to help And Skinner, we find out, has been infected by the Grey Trader and is slowly transforming into one of the monsters that we saw in the beginning of the book. So, again, very enjoyable issue. Again, a lot happens splitting the story up, but unlike some other books that try splitting a story, I feel this one's really well done. Every section feels complete. It never feels like we're cutting out too early or too late or in the middle of something. We cut out just as it should, and we get just enough to make us interested in the next issue and the next where's the story going. So really, really enjoyable. Really liked it, and it's picking up. I like that it's. I do like that it's getting this more kind of science fiction or this science fiction twist, adding on to just the horror elements. Because I'm a big sci-fi fan, so really interested into seeing where this is going, and especially to see where all these space vampires are going to add up to. Because I think this is the second one, so fun. Moving on now to Convergence. DC only picked up 3 Convergence books this week, starting off with Convergence number 2, the main story of this book, and we start out with what feels we start out with another flashback to pre-Convergence. We are following Dick Grayson of Earth 2 on his final days right before Apocalypse happens, and he has to give his son, he's trying to give his son to an escape rocket while he stays on Earth. Very kind of reminiscent of scenes where you have soldiers and where you have residents in Vietnam or Korea trying to give their children over to the U.S. soldiers to keep them safe before shit goes down. So very reminiscent of that. He's trying to get his son to an escape pod while he stays back, and right then he sees all the heroes fighting Darkseid, and then they're all, of course, kidnapped and put onto Telos. And because they are without a city, Telos basically just makes them watch the rest of the cities fight it out before they are able to escape for themselves. But before that, we're given a very quick battle between the cities of Future's End, versus the Just Imagine city. Just Imagine being a Elseworlds story collection that DC did, where they had Stan Lee, who's famous for creating most of Marvel's characters. They had Stan Lee reinvent all of their base characters. So Stan Lee's Superman, Stan Lee's Batman, Stan Lee's Green Lantern, Stan Lee's Wonder Woman, and they just kind of get wrecked by the Future's End universe. So, as I said before, the heroes of Earth 2 end up escaping Telos and trying to find a way to bring an end to the games from, basically, as an insurgent team, trying to find a way to defeat Telos and free everybody. Earth 2 Green Lantern tries to tap into his powers. His powers, unlike other Green Lanterns, use the power of the planet he's on. He's an avatar for planetary energies. So he tries to do this with Telos. Being that Telos is the planet, he gets a little more than he bargained for, but he does discover that Telos might have a weakness underground. So then the Earth 2 heroes split into teams of 2 again, where you have basically everybody with superpowers go with Green Lantern and try to find the weakness to Telos, while Batman, Earth 2 Batman, who's Thomas Wayne, goes off with Dick Grayson to find help. Oh, and the Flash runs reconnaissance because he's the Flash. So, of course, his position involves running and blowing my nose. Warned you this would happen. Oh. Like. Yeah. So, Thomas Wayne and Dick Grayson go off and find a alternate Gotham, where of course they end up running into the Batcave and discovering. Well, first, Dick Grayson discovers an alternate Barbara Gordon is still alive and has a bit of an existential panic because his Barbara Gordon is dead. So he's wondering, oh my God, this is new Barbara Gordon. This is my wife, and she's alive, but she's is she alive? Is this her? Kind of that sort of thing. He runs into Alfred, and then of course Thomas runs into Bruce Wayne, and they're so alike. That's basically what Dick Grayson says, because of course Bruce is Batman because Bruce was turned into Batman fueled by the death of his father, and in Earth 2 Thomas Wayne became Batman fueled by the death of Bruce Wayne, his son. So they get to finally see each other for the first time in a long time. Well, for Thomas at least. Yeah, for both of them. Seeing each other for the first time in decades, probably. Yeah. So they bond, and what bothers me about this is, let me see if you could point it out before I reveal it. Gonna flip back. Bruce Wayne's costume changes back and forth throughout this book. So we start with him, this costume, yellow emblem, yellow oval over here. And then when we see him a few pages later, his costume is changed to no yellow, just the black bat symbol. And then we continue again, immediately next page, back with the yellow symbol. I actually really like this page. I think it's a neat illustration of Batman. Catching back up with the other heroes of Earth 2, they're trying to find a way into the planet, trying to find a way to, basically get to the underground. And on the very last page, they rescue and discover Deimos. And I had no idea who Deimos is, so I did a bit of research, and it turns out that Deimos is a pretty obscure DC comic books villain. Why he's important is because he's a villain of, I forget who he's a villain of, but he's from the middle of the Earth. So Green Lantern discovers that Delos' weakness is underground, and this is a character whose domain has been the center of planets, has been underground, so that is probably where he comes in. So compared to issue 1 and 2, I actually really like this one. I do like where the story is going. It seems that we will be following the Earth 2 heroes as they drive the main force of the plot, which I don't mind. And I'm glad that we have the other books, though, to kind of round out and explore all these other cities. But yeah, this book, and aside from the costume mess up, which is kind of big, you'd think people would have noticed and corrected that, this book is pretty great. Like Miss Marvel, a lot goes on. This is a very jam-packed book. The pacing is not as good, unfortunately. I think that the flashback could have been a lot shorter in the beginning. We didn't need so much of the pre-Convergence storyline, I felt. It's a big first chunk of this book is just has nothing to do with the story, really. It's just basically to establish that Barbara's dead for later on. So I think that was too long. I really would like to have seen more of this fight between Just Imagine and New Frontier, not New Frontier, and Future's End. The reason I'm confusing those is because of Star Trek. Because of course in Star Trek, the opening is New Frontier, not New Frontier, the Final Frontier, but I'm getting that with New Frontier. And then Future's End was the last episode of Next Generation. It's all it's all bundled up in my nerd brain. So I would have liked to see more of that. New Frontier, of course, is also a DC story. I believe they're also somewhere in Convergence. Yeah, lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. And I do think it's neat how we have one Thomas Wayne meet a Bruce Wayne. I think that could have been explored more. The problem is we have a lot of this book is that whole scene with Bruce and Thomas is narrated by Dick, so whatever Dick was not privy to, we do not see in the book. But I would have liked to actually see the conversation or just more of what happens between Bruce and Thomas, because it's interesting, Bruce meeting an alternate version of his father, where his father became Batman, and Thomas being able to see his son again. So it's I wonder if this Thomas Wayne will actually run into Flashpoint Thomas Wayne, because they have a similar thing going on, being Thomas Wayne Batmans, who are Batman because of their son dying. Anywho, yeah, like this issue quite a lot. I'm liking Convergence so far. I hope it continues to be this level of quality or better. I hope it gets better, you know, but if it doesn't get better than this is still a lot better than Trinity War was. So, A+. Not A+, but thumbs up. Moving on to Convergence, Shadow of the Bat, issue 1. This story follows... We get two Batman for the price of one. We get Bruce Wayne Batman and Azrael Batman. Jean Paul Valley. In the 90s, Bane broke Batman's back, so Azrael, Jean Paul Van Damme. Jean Paul Valley took over the mantle of Batman while Bruce Wayne got his back magically healed by his therapist girlfriend. It's weird. Comic books are weird. Anyway, physical therapist girlfriend, I think. Anywho, we start off with Bruce Wayne going undercover to see undercover in order to interrupt what's his name? Tobias Whale. This kingpin-looking fellow over here, Tobias Whale, gangster. Bruce Wayne going undercover to stop his evil plan. We find out that also going undercover to stop Tobias Whale is Jean Paul Valley. So Bruce and Valley decide to team up to take down Tobias Whale. To do this, they work undercover in order to find out what Tobias Whale's plan is. It turns out that he's hijacking a food delivery, or a medicine delivery, some sort of important delivery. And after finding out his plan, the two suit up in order to actually stop the hijacking. So we get half this book set up, and the other half is a really cool As-Bats and Batman fighting on trucks. Fighting monsters on trucks, and that's the back half of this issue. So we get kind of Azrael doing most of the truck hijacking, while Bruce Wayne goes after Tobias Whale. And I really like these pages. I like the lighting. It's really weird. It makes them look a bit plasticky, the characters, but I still, there's something about it that I really like. Especially these pages over here and the one I showed of Batman later. This one, really like the art here. So yeah, this is another good page. Batman fighting Tobias Whale. By the end of this book, Batman has to stop Azrael from killing people because Azrael has a problem where he kills people. Of course, Bruce Wayne doesn't like that. And then it's only in the final few pages where Convergence pops up again, and we have Tell Us a Speech from Convergence number 1. And then we find out that the two Batmen are being watched by... I'm not actually sure who these guys are, but they have time travel capabilities. So they're basically scouting the competition. And then the end of this book is Batman and Azrael fighting defeating Tobias Whale, stopping his hijacking, while another time slip is coming on, but they are not the cause. So big mystery there. But again, it's weird because of course during this Convergence event we're getting to see characters and getting to see versions of characters that we haven't seen in a while. So the book, of course, wants to take its time to reintroduce these characters, to let these characters kind of exist in their own environment before dragging them into the Convergence event. So it gives them enough room to grow, but again, but it feels like in order to give them room to grow, they're actively taking away stuff from Convergence. Each of these miniseries are only 2 issues each, so I would honestly like to see, I guess, more of this transitioning into the main Convergence event. I think it's a good story on its own. It would make a pretty good single issue thing, just Batman and Azrael teaming up to stop this hijacking. But but I wouldn't buy just a single issue of that removed from everything else. Like, the reason I bought this was because of Convergence. I want to see these characters in the Convergence event, not just in a single story removed from everything else. But of course, if you add them just fighting other characters, then it's a pretty shallow story. So a lot of these books are balancing having these characters be in their own environment with having these characters be in Convergence, and a lot of these books do it better, or some of these books that I've read have done it better than this one. This one doesn't do it especially bad. And it does the balance bad, but it's not poorly written. It's a really good single story that ties to Convergence a bit too late, in my opinion. But if you really have an itch to scratch for kind of late 90s Batman stories, and Azrael Bats in particular, then I can't say no to picking it up. You probably won't be disappointed. And the last book this week is Convergence Justice League International, #1. This is probably the simplest book I've read all week. Kind of the most point-to-point kind of thing. We start off with the Justice League International fighting Metallo as Metallo tries to take over Metropolis. I really like the art style of this book. I like this kind of short era in comics, where comics look like this. It also, of course, reminds me a lot of kind of the Bruce Timm animated kind of style, with the bold lines and bright colors, bold outlines and saturated colors. Really like that. And then after this big fight, which takes up not too much of this issue, it's a really good chunk, good sized fight. The heroes win, even without their superpowers. A lot of this is those heroes recovering. As soon as the fight's over, they go back to their home base and try to repair. And the main conflict of this book isn't how are we going to defeat the villain, but we defeated the villain, it cost him, there was some damage, and now we have to repair, but because we've been trapped under this dome for a year, we're running out of supplies. Like, how long can we keep this up if nothing changes? Constantly needing maintenance and all that. And again, the dialogue in this book is really good. A particular standout is Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, who's kind of the main character throughout this book. And he just has a very strong Bill Murray vibe in this issue. He's always been kind of, not comedic relief, but he's always been a more lighthearted character, especially when teaming up with Booster Gold. And in this book, without Booster Gold, he's kind of become very Bill Murray-ish. Without someone who would really bounce things off of, he's just kind of taken to kind of just sardonic and snark, and using sarcasm to distance himself from the reality of his situation, which is very bleak. He does talk to Martian Manhunter, but Martian Manhunter is more kind of a stoic character. And then, of course, at the end of the book, we get the tie-in to Convergence. We get Telos' speech. A lot of the League gets their powers back. Part of this book was also that Ted Kord is the only person on the league who's used to not having powers, so he was kind of became the de facto leader because he was the only one used to fighting without powers. All the others had to adjust to that. So everybody gets their powers back, and then they are ambushed by a different Justice League led by Wonder Woman. I'm not exactly sure which universe these characters are from, especially this Blue Beetle. Just don't know where he's from. Everyone else looks very similar to the standard sort of stuff. Creeper, I guess Huntress is different. Huntress is more like Cheetah. I'm really not sure what this universe is supposed to be, where it's where there's no Superman, but there is a Captain Marvel. But yeah, so we end with Justice League International versus this other Justice League, and then basically book ends there. I did like this issue. Again, I kind of have the same problem I did with Shadow of the Bat, where there's not enough kind of convergency things going on here, but we had a good fight scene in the beginning, and then how that fight scene transitioned to the rest of the book, where it wasn't about convergence, but it was about this team of heroes dealing with the event of being under the dome and dealing with having these limited supplies and having these very limited resources, but still very stubbornly being heroes and protecting people, and then seeing how this affected Blue Beetle. In particular, I really liked, and Blue Beetle, of course, just very fun to read with his kind of Bill Murray sensibilities. So really, really, really enjoyed this book too. And then we, and that is it. We are done for this week. Thankfully, a short week. I hope next week's is also a short pull. I will have to check. Either that, or hopefully I feel a lot better. But yeah. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like. If you want to see more of this, please subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, etc., leave them down below. Again, thank you for watching, and hope you'll join me next week.